called Canoe Cove.
Wow.
We are in Canoe Cove. That is a place in Canada, and we are with the boat out of the water. They are doing some fixing, and we are cruising since I retired in 2018.
Okay. Is Jan there with you?
Jan is obviously with me. Is this Tom Dodson?
So let you see Jan.
Hey, how you doing?
Okay.
You can
Nice
hold.
to see you.
Jane, Tom Dodson wants to say hi. Say hi.
Hi, Dr. Dodson. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. Here's Jan, too.
Hey there, how you doing?
Hi.
Good,
Do you have
good.
images? Because I don't see anybody.
Well,
You don't see me?
Hello, Tom and Jan. This is Rich saying hi.
Richard, how are you?
I'm good. Did you finally bite the bullet?
I wouldn't, biting the bullet might be the case, all right.
Dr. Dodson, I don't know if you can put yourself on gallery view, and Dr. Ricketts, I think this will mean a lot to you as well, but we've got Vic Weiss, Heather Slay, Mira Milas, Joel Corvera, a bunch of old graduates on the phone. Anita Pruitt, who's now McSwain, Bo Edelman. I'm just scrolling through. James Mikachenko. So, you know, Genevieve, everyone who doesn't remember me from back in 2000.
Hey, Genevieve.
But we couldn't, I see Robin Sacafio on there. I want you to kind of scroll through everyone because there are a lot of folks who've joined the call tonight. In honor, and I see your children and Ann on the phone as well, but I want to give an opportunity to a lot of the prior graduates. So as everyone knows, Dr. Dodson's last day, although he won't allow us to say that because he's still doing spine exposures.
There you go.
But it was August 31st. And because of COVID, we didn't get to put on a proper tribute to you. And so your trainees, a bunch of them are on the line tonight because they all want to pay tribute to you. I'm going to let some of the folks get to talk to you personally. I wouldn't let you open your gift last night. I'm going to show a copy of what we've given you online so that you don't have to haul it in front of the camera when you open it.
Okay.
But maybe I can just start off by, does anyone want to raise their hand if they want to speak up and say a few words to Dr. Dodson?
Hi, well, hi.
Heather.
Yeah, congratulations.
Oh, thanks. How are you? let you see Jan, too.
I'm going to start
Jan.
crying. I'm going to start crying with this. Nice to see
Sorry,
you.
it's a little dark in my house. We just lost power, so I've been trying to get this on with my hotspot.
I'm so sorry.
Oh, gosh. How'd you have to lose power, Heather?
Thunderstorms, old house.
Oh, really? That
Yeah.
doesn't happen in Grand Rapids, does it?
Oh gosh, rarely, but you know.
Yeah. How are the boys?
They're great, thank you. They're 13, 15, and 17.
Wow.
Oh my.
So one's
So-
driving.
Sorry?
One is driving. Driving
almost.
a car. Two are
He's not
driving.
super anxious.
Okay.
Yeah, but they're doing well, thanks.
Yeah.
So we miss you guys. I wish I could have been there in person to see you and give you a big hug, but congratulations.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the comments. We miss you.
All right, who's up next?
Genevieve, I'll say something because I figured out the unmute button. I
Wonderful.
have to figure that out every Zoom
Mira.
call after a year or two. Dr.
Mira.
Dodson.
Hey there. It's so good to see you.
Hi, Mrs. Jan
Hiya.
Dodson. This is me representing me and Z until Z can join.
Nice.
I think he's in the OR, but he's
Very nice.
planning on
Andrew
joining.
Page there for a minute.
Here, Edward, say hi, Dr. Dodson.
Hey,
Dr.
is that
Hi,
Edward?
Dr. Dodson.
Hey,
Hey, Edward.
Congratulations.
good to see you. He looks great.
We miss you.
Oh, thanks, honey. He's a
Say louder.
big boy.
We miss you.
Well, thank you. We miss you. You look good.
You gotten so tall.
Thanks.
You say bye-bye.
Hi, Tom. It's your friend Michael from New York. Hi, Jan.
Hey there, we've lost your face.
I'm sorry.
But I know
I
the
did-
voice.
I did comb my hair, too.
Oh, why, how come we're not getting it?
Don't know. Problems on his end. It's not out.
I see Mary Lester. Hi.
Mary
Sorry.
Lester's
I'm
awesome.
so excited
There's
to see
Mira.
everyone. And Dr. Dodson, Kelly Bolden's on the line. You know, she's a new mother.
Oh, she is. Wow. Kelly, congratulations.
Hi,
you have
Mary.
a boy or a girl?
Thank you. It's a little boy. This is Walker. Say hi, Walker.
Oh, goodness.
Oh, look at that.
Oh
Oh,
my
how adorable. Oh, how precious.
Wow.
Thank you.
Are you in Baltimore, Kelly?
I'm actually in DC. I was in Baltimore for a year for fellowship, and I've been in DC now since, gosh, 2012.
You have? Okay.
This is
I
home
need your
now.
I need your address sometime. Will you send it to me?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Beautiful baby.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. So many faces.
Oh.
Morris
Hi,
family, I
Kelly.
see you on there as well. Hi.
Hi, everyone. Good to see all the folks.
Oh, how are you?
Great. Congratulations, Tom.
I haven't seen you in so long. Are you
It's
doing
been
okay?
a long time. Doing great.
Yeah.
Good to see everyone.
Wonderful, isn't it?
It is. Joel and Vic, you're on my screen.
Yeah. Morris, I see you.
I know, is it kind of sad that
Joel
and I are not in the same place? Normally he would be sitting right here behind me, but I think you'll all not be shocked to know that he's still at the hospital.
Oh, is it really?
Well,
Mary, how many children do you and Joel have?
Two.
We have two. We have a mini Mary and a mini Joel. So
Okay.
Maddie is 12 and Charlie is 10, and they're doing great, and we miss all of you guys so much.
Yeah. Oh, you're kind.
Yeah, make me choke up, Mary.
Yeah.
I'm already going to choke up, but I'm choking
Yeah,
up.
I know. I'm a total sap. Nothing's changed.
I know. Mary's crying. Mary.
Nobody looks different. Everybody looks the same.
I have a ton of white hair.
I have a lot less hair.
I fixed that chemically.
Mira, what's the temperature out there?
It's about 104. That was in the morning. I haven't.
Oh,
checked
really?
yet.
Wow. What will the temperature be in January?
Oh, it will be nice. It will be
100
70 and
100
nice.
103?
No, 70.
Okay, good.
We're
70
looking
and
forward
nice.
to that.
Good.
So is everybody here. So everybody on the screen should also come. You're all welcome to come for Grand Rounds. Hi, Dr. Ricketts.
Hey, Mira, how are you?
I'm gonna start crying too, Mary.
It sounds like you must be out in Phoenix or something from what I just heard.
I'm in Phoenix, Arizona.
Yeah, I didn't. Okay. Well, it is hot out there.
Yep.
Richard, how's Sandy?
Just fine. We're doing fine. We're getting ready to go actually to Sacramento for a meeting at the end of this week. First time on the airplane, so we'll see if we make it back.
Yeah, N95.
I know.
Dr.
Sasha,
Dodson, can
is
you
that
hear me?
you?
I hear somebody. Who's that?
Hi. It's so nice to
Sasha's
see
down
you,
there.
Dr.
Oh,
Dodson.
how are
Sasha's
you?
down there.
Good to see
I'm
you.
doing well. Hello from Texas.
Where are you now?
I'm in Dallas.
Dallas?
Yeah.
We have a son coming out there to Love Field on Thursday, right?
Thursday, yeah. He and his girlfriend. He's going out to meet the parents. Oh, that's exciting.
I'm on the call, just so you know.
Oh, there you are. There you are.
I'm glad we didn't say too much.
I'm listening.
I wasn't going to say anymore.
No, it's fine.
Yeah, that's our son, our middle child. It's nice to meet you.
It's nice to meet
And welcome
you.
to
too.
Dallas in advance.
Thanks so much.
Well,
Thanks so much.
Well, you know, my chief year baby just left home and went off to college this fall, believe it or
Really?
not. Yeah.
Wow.
He's at Princeton, like his mom.
Oh, wow. That's a legacy, huh?
Great.
Yeah.
That's a
he's
great
third
school.
generation.
Yeah. Oh, the third generation.
Yeah. Yeah.
So your parents went there as well, or one of the parents
My
did?
dad. Yeah.
Your dad did? Wow.
And then my younger son is almost 15 now. He's a sophomore in high school. So they're growing up fast.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's hard to believe.
It is hard to believe. I still think of you at the VA. We used to talk periodically at the VA.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, Edelman.
Yeah, hey, Dr. Dodson.
Hey, Bo.
Yeah.
How are you?
I feel like you look like you haven't changed a bit. It's hard to imagine you're retired.
Well,
or slowed down, whatever the term is.
You're kind. You're kind. Your vision probably is not doing too well. Maybe an ophthalmology appointment early would be good.
I'll wipe off my screen.
That's
Oh,
right.
yeah, there you go.
Right.
Oh, no, I'm just
Squirt a
kidding.
little. Tom's having to squirt a little water on it.
Yeah, right. Hey, I don't know if Seth made it on the call, but I worked with Seth Weinreb, and he was going to try to make it, and certainly want to pass on his regards as well.
Oh, good. That's good.
Yeah.
Where are you now, Bo?
In Raleigh, North Carolina.
Are you really?
Yeah, one of the UNC affiliate hospitals, private hospital.
Is that Rex Hospital?
Yeah, it's Rex. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, Dick Myers.
Yeah,
was,
you know,
he
you've
trained
heard
with
this
Dick.
story. Whenever I would do a case and I thought I had really done a good job, the nurse would say, Dick Myers could have done it in an hour less than you did. And I grew up hearing that for many years. So is Dick still alive?
Oh yeah, he's alive. He's doing great. I see him
Is he really?
a couple times a year. Yeah.
Tell him I send warm regards. I still wake up in a cold sweat thinking about Dick Myers.
All right, I'll let him know. I'll let him know.
Good.
Great to see you. Congratulations.
Oh, thanks very much.
Yeah.
Vic, did you want to say something? Did you want to say something?
Oh, yeah. Hi, Tom. Hey, man.
Vic.
Hey, how are you?
Vic.
Great. Where's Amy?
In DC. Today's her anniversary. We forgot to tell her it's her 13th anniversary.
All right.
I still remember when you and I were in St. Louis and I had her come out to dinner. You were engaged and I was hoping you'd break off your engagement and marry Amy. But it just didn't work out.
I'm here, Vic. Hi.
Amy. That was a high-pressure dinner.
How's Nicole?
She's great. Everybody's doing well. Actually, we're planning a trip to Emory to have our oldest son take a look at the school.
Are you really?
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
Yeah,
You'll let me know when you're coming?
I will.
That'd be good. I
Yeah.
still remember, I heard from you recently, you went to Iceland.
We did a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Caught
Our
the
oldest.
tail end of the volcano.
Uh-huh.
It's pretty
That's
cool.
great.
So,
Give
I was
Nicole
thinking-
warm regards, okay?
I will. I was thinking today about how I was fortunate enough to have you and Dr. Amerson really believe in me. Everybody needs somebody to believe in them. And you were there not only for me, but I think for everybody on this screen. So we thank you for that. And we had a great dinner a couple years ago with Scott PT.
Yeah.
Yeah,
coming
that's
down to
right.
say thanks. We'll need to do that again.
Oh, that'd be wonderful. So I still remember New York Medical College. I told you you were the first person from New York Medical College we had ever accepted.
You know, I was wondering if people were going to think that it was NYU and I could sort of get away with something.
Right.
But yeah, you had kind of picked up on that.
The other thing I still remember, the Richmond Spiders.
There you go. That's a great memory. Yep.
Yep. I'll never forget the Spiders.
I remember you telling me that you went to go visit the medical school there and it was raining and you never wanted to go back.
Right. The guy in the gas station said, "This is not a safe town. I'd recommend you go some other place."
Here's another
For
Richmond
everyone who's
spider
on the
that wants to
line,
say hi.
Oh gosh, how are you?
It's Anita. I'm great.
Anita. So I
Yeah.
used to see your mother-in-law and
Yes,
your
she's still doing wonderful, actually.
she had a tight carotid after
Yeah.
I had operated on her.
Yes, that's true. She's doing great. She lives in South Carolina now.
Oh, she does.
Mm-hmm.
But she hadn't had any problems.
No.
So
Not at all.
Anita used to weigh about 65 pounds.
I weigh more than that now, especially after COVID.
and we had a video, which she was in the video, and somebody asked her, "What do you like to do?" And she said, "I like to eat."
Eat. That's right. I still do.
You remember that?
Yes.
I
Yeah.
thought you were the smallest person in the entire group, and you said you like to eat.
I
How's your
still
husband
do.
doing?
He's great. Yep. He's doing well.
Good. Went into cardiology, as I remember. Was going to be an orthopedic surgeon, and then went into cardiology. Isn't that right?
Yeah. EP cardiology. Yep.
Right. Good. Tell him and your parents that I said hello.
I
and
will do.
Your mother-in-law.
And I just want to echo what Vic said. I really appreciate all you did for us.
Oh, you're kind. It was fun.
It was fun. I remember all your music in the OR in particular. I loved it.
Yeah, I'm still
Delilah.
Titanic.
Delilah.
Friday nights with
The best
Delilah.
spell is a day without pain is like a day without sunshine, Jonathan.
Oh, that's
My
one of my
favorite.
all-time favorites.
Just for everyone, all the old grads on the line, Dr. McKinnon is also on the line. I don't know if you see him there, but we have been trying to run this. When Dr. Dodson retired the first time, semi-retired about 5 years ago, we started up the TFD History Society because everyone on the line knows well how much Dr. Dodson loves history. And it's been an opportunity. The goal, I actually stole the idea from Katie Morgan, who was also going to try to Zoom in tonight. I don't know if she was going to be able to make it, but she does a little history society with the residents up at MUSC. And it was an opportunity for the faculty to interact with the trainees outside of the hospital. And Zoom had to come into existence because of COVID, but it's given us at least this opportunity. And so tonight, I just wanted all of Dr. Dodson's, as many as possible prior graduates. I don't know that I had everyone's emails. I tried to get as many folks from 1991 onward. 1991 to 2011 were your program directorship years. The first 5 of those years were spent as the associate program director, and then as the program director. And I think everyone feels the same way about you. I'm going to choke up a little bit talking about this because you are like a dad to me. So anyway, I appreciate everything that you did for me. And it was certainly your trainees that actually first told me that I needed to be pulled out of the dark side that was neurosurgery. So Bo and Joel and Mary and Heather Slay, who was my first resident as a PGY4 at CHOA, with Dr. Ricketts, both.
Yeah, we tried to get you to come to our side, but you wouldn't come over.
I came over eventually. Just took an extra year.
Not full time though.
Yes, not full time. That's true. But I have a world of gratitude for all of the trainees that have gone through this program, and the tenor of the program was set by you. And those of us who continued on here afterwards can only hope to do a fraction of what you did for all of us. So I'm going to stop talking because I'll just start crying because I'm an emotional sap. I haven't yet had everyone speak up, so please, I'm not like the mistress of control here. Just chime in. I kind of wanted to highlight some of the people you may not have seen in a while because they're obviously the more recent residents that you have seen, but you're all welcome to speak up as well so I can dry my eyes before we continue on with this.
So I still teach my residents, Dr. Dodson, if plan A doesn't work, plan B cannot be the same as plan A.
That's correct, Mary. I'm happy to hear that. Let me just say to all of you, I love you guys. I appreciate you doing this.
I just want to say, Dr. Dodson, I always remind my wife about love and exposure.
And sometimes it doesn't go down too well, but we always talk a lot.
Right. Right. You could compromise on love, but you can't compromise on exposure, right?
That's right. That's right.
Good. Taki, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. I'm so glad that we put this together. Morris Findley was a resident when I was an anesthesia tech at Crawford Lawn when I was at Georgia Tech. And so he actually recommended me to the program, which was very helpful, probably got me in. And then hey Morris, how you doing, bud? Great. And then I didn't know what the SMV was. You asked me a question about the SMV when I was a fourth year medical student. I thought my career was over, Dr. Dodson. But I still remember that. But oh, thank you so much.
I'd like you to know I tried to email David Nortrica, who infamously dropped the shunt for the 20 years worth of residence after he graduated. But I'm not sure I had the right email address. So
I'll see David when we go out to Phoenix. I don't think I'll remind him that he dropped the shunt, however. Seems a little unkind, although I never forgot it.
So, if anyone else wants to speak up, please do. I was going to pull up, so Dr. Dodson, Mrs. Dodson, your trainees got together and wanted to give you a gift. And so what we thought about was actually Michael Halkos, who kind of helped give me a little bit of this idea. I don't see him on the call tonight. I can't tell you how many people. We've got an awesome number of people who've joined tonight, but there are even more who couldn't reach out because we're a bunch of surgeons, and so they weren't going to make sure they could make the call. We are recording this, and I'm going to send it to all the alumni, but the card that I dropped off with the gift lists a number of the folks who actually contributed to donating toward the gift. They're not just your prior trainees, but they are faculty members who've been touched by you as well. And let me see if I can share my screen here so I can show everyone what your gift is going to look like. It's sitting there for you, but we put together a pedigree tree that lists everyone who trained in the program. And I didn't want you all to have to lift it up. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit, but everyone will see themselves there in the tree.
How nice.
And this starts off, it goes all the way down to when you first started. So everyone will see, sorry for making everyone nauseated. Ingram was in your first APD class there, Chris Larson. And then as we scroll up, it branches out through the entire tree. There are some hanging implements there. I'm not the best at hanging stuff, but I'm happy to come over and help hang it in the house if that'll help. And so many people wanted to donate to the gift that we actually tripled the amount it cost to make it for you. So the funds that are in excess are being donated under your name to the McKinnon Galloway Alumni Society, which for everyone who's on the line is an alumni society that was started to help support residents who have financial need during their training time and to help with educational needs. And so we'll get you that card as soon as I finish putting together donating that amount to the fund. I know that a couple of your colleagues outside of the residents are on the line who may want to say something, and we are going to get to tonight's events shortly, the historical part of things, because we have the privilege of having Don Nakayama on the line, who's a professor of pediatric surgery at UNC and a dear friend of history, has been a longtime friend of Dr. Dodson's, and is going to be talking us through one of the historical paintings in women in surgery tonight. But I wanted to give an opportunity to Dr. Sweeney, Dr. Dahlman, as well as I do see Dr. Jordan on the line as well. So maybe we could start off with Dr. Jordan if you had anything you wanted to say to Dr. Dodson before I unzoom this out.
I would be honored. Thank you, Dr. Srinivasan. And for those who don't know me, I wish I was on that pedigree tree. I actually was influenced by Dr. Dodson during vascular fellowship here. That was from 93 to 94. So I did cross over with some of you. And if you don't know me, I'm actually now, he recruited me to replace him here. So I'm now chief when he has been chief of this division for many years. And I should also tell you that Tom inspired me to go down the educational route when I was a fourth-year resident. Excuse me, I was a fellow working with a fourth-year resident. It was Stuart Horsley. Tom, do you remember this case?
Sure. Yep. He went to Mississippi, I think.
It was an open aneurysm, and I told Tom I'm interested in being a teacher and doing this, going down this path. And so he stood in the corner, sat in the corner, scrubbed, and let Stuart and me do this operation. Everything went great, and he came over and we were done. And after we'd sewed the graft in, and he looked at it and grunted and said, grumbled and said, "Don't think I really like sitting over there," and just walked out apologetically. So Tom, that helped inspire me. That's what one thing that really pushed me down the academic line. And I'm proud to say that I can be here and help continue what you have started at this institution. So thank you for who you are, and I'm certainly looking forward to seeing you more. We're not done with you yet, just partly.
Thanks very much, Will. You're very kind.
Dr. Sweeney, I saw you had your hand up earlier. I just wanted to give you an opportunity to speak.
Yeah, hey Tom, hey Jan. I hope you can hear me okay.
We can.
I'm sitting there in the
Sure.
car. Yeah, I'm in the car on the top floor of the parking deck. But anyways, just wanted to tell you, Tom, first of all, what a great friend you've been to me since 14 years ago. I came here to Emory, and you were one of the people that I met with on my recruiting visit, and then we became obviously fast friends. Tom, who was I think she's on the line with us, but Tom and I went to a USC Notre Dame football game. And as you can imagine, Tom made friends with everybody in the stands around us. We were watching the women's soccer game before the football game started, and Tom made friends with the family. It was from Michigan, and you gave him a referral to one of your graduates from Grand Rapids, and I think she's on the phone with us tonight. So that was one of our many great.
That was Heather Slay, who was in Grand Rapids. That's right. Always looking out for my residents.
Yeah, so that was fantastic. But Tom, this is a testament to the contributions that you've made and the lives that you've touched over the course of your career, and the kind of person that you are. So I'm just I'm so appreciative for what you've done for the department. I've heard. I'm gonna, John, if I can, I want to ask Dr. Wood to say a few words. I've heard his chuckle in the background, but the contributions you've made to the department are really second to none. And then I'm just so grateful to be able to count you as one of my friends. So congratulations, and thanks for everything.
John, thanks so much.
Dr. Wood, I'm so sorry I didn't see you on the line here. Are you on the screen? Maybe I'm going to start off with Keith until we can find Dr. Wood.
Well, it's kind of like, it's a really hard act to follow. I can tell you in many ways. It's a hard act to follow. John, you said you set the tone for the residency, and that's an understatement. You set the tone for the value of education and the importance of supporting your trainees. And I have benefited from your tutelage, your wisdom, and your sage-like advice in so many ways. I can't even begin to count them. What's remarkable is listening to you talk tonight and your recall. I mean, I'm only a year and a half removed from the program directorship, and I can barely remember like what I did yesterday. And you are recalling all of these amazing experiences with every one of the individuals on this call, which is just a testimony to who you are. I will say this, I do remember one thing. Mary, you won't remember this, but you took me to lunch on my interview day here when Charlie was recruiting me, and you were on Staley's service at the time. And that is definitely something I remember. But beyond that, I would say, you've been a remarkable friend, an amazing colleague, and most importantly, you helped me be a better physician and a better program director. And I think all of the younger residents on here who benefited from that experience, it's all a testimony to who you are. And the fact that all these folks that are on here tonight are here for you is a testimony to your character and your integrity, and just the amazing person that you are. I thank you for everything you did for me and for this institution and for everyone on this call and the people who couldn't be on the call. So congratulations on your retirement, even though we're not really allowed to talk about it. Congratulations on your retirement. And, we look forward to having you back when you're ready.
Thank you, Keith. You and Genevieve brought the program even higher, so I appreciate all you've done.
I'm going to just, for anyone who wants to see what it looks like, because I have a version of your tree that'll be hanging here in the educational suites. But that's what we gave you as well. So folks can kind of see what things look like. So hopefully people will stroll through the H-Wing and come visit me. I'm hooked onto the poster. We'll come visit everyone from my era because I feel really old these days. Come back and visit us down here and find your name on the tree and hang out a little bit. Maybe we can put together some kind of real alumni event when COVID allows us all to do that. I do want to just read something in the chat, Dr. Dodson. We have Zvonimir and Dr. Pettit have joined, so I'm going to give them an opportunity to say something as well. But Johanna had to drop off the call. She just said, I want to make sure that on behalf of the non-training, non-faculty colleagues, Dr. Dodson, I've been so privileged to get to work with you. On behalf of your grateful patients and their families, I will always hold your calming and kind care as a standard for providers. Thank you, sir, for the honor of knowing you, Johanna. Johanna is our director of education, and her father is a patient of Dr. Dodson's, I believe, or father-in-law, perhaps.
He's a world traveler, so I rarely find him in town, but other than that, he's been my patient.
Very good. There are a lot of other folks. I don't want to keep people from speaking up if they want to, but I do want to move on with the evening's events as well. I think Dr. Dodson, a testament to how much you've impacted people is that there are people who graduated last year who've Zoomed in tonight to be part of the call. I saw Clara and Allie on the line and Matt Stanley and Emeka, so a nice chunk of our prior chief class. Blaine's Zoomed in from Toronto. Priya from Arizona. So, there were people who were mad at me that I didn't put their names on your tree, but I said, well, that tree pedigree belongs to a different program director. So, Keith has been wonderful in your stead, and I hope I can do a fraction of the job that y'all did over the last 30 years. And with that, I'd like to introduce, so Brendan, do you want to go ahead and chime in? Brendan Lavasic is one of our PGY4 residents. One final thing for Dr. Dodson's family, thank you for sharing him with so many of us for so long. I know it can't have been easy to have to, give your dad up to all us people, and we're appreciative of it. So thanks so much to your family as well.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Genevieve.
Our pleasure. Got to do something fancier the next time around.
This is great.
Can we stay if we want to?
You can absolutely. So from my perspective, I'm inviting all of the prior trainees to these sessions in perpetuity. So, and no one gets to mess with me because I'm the boss now. So you can stay for the session if you want to stay. And I hope to just make sure we send this out to the listserv for folks in the future. Anyone who wants to join in and see old faces will be able to do that. I know everyone's really busy, you're surgeons and parents and have families, so you're more than welcome to stay. You certainly don't have to if you don't want to. I will send, when we're done recording tonight's session, I'm gonna send a link of this out to everyone so anyone who couldn't make it tonight can watch as well.
And thank you, Genevieve, for putting together such a great event.
It's the least I could do. Rep. Brendan, do you want to chime in and introduce the historical part of tonight?
Absolutely. So I wanted to thank everyone for being here. Again, this meant a lot to pretty much everyone who's trained under Dr. Dodson, whether remote or more recent. I wanted to introduce our guest for this evening, Dr. Don Nakayama. Dr. Nakayama is a well-established friend of the program, both at Emory, and he's spent, I believe, the majority of his career in the southeastern United States. He is the current editor of the American Surgeon, which is the Southeastern Surgical Congress's journal. He is a professor of pediatric surgery at University of North Carolina, and he is one of my favorite surgical historians to read. He is absolutely an avid consumer of surgical history, and he's reading any of his articles, you realize the passion that he has for bringing the stories of the colorful aspects of our field to life. So thank you, Dr. Nakayama, for coming, and I will allow you to share your screen.
And one thing I do have to do, Dr. Dodson, because Tim Simon's on the line, and I didn't realize the Simon was him. I need to read to you what he has written to you, because I think it's quite lovely. Dr. Dodson, I want to thank you for accepting a second young Black man from Howard University in 1994 after accepting Michael Cornwall the year before. Your steadiness and calmness demonstrated to me how to behave after a minor incident I had with the anesthesia department. It was definitely a privilege to work with you. I'm doing well. My son is a freshman at Morehouse and daughter is a senior at University of Texas and running track as well, currently an All-American 400 meters. So taking
Wow.
after her dad.
Yeah. He was a track star, as I remember. Is that right?
I think, Tim, you're still on the line if you want to unmute yourself.
Oh, okay. Can you hear
Tim,
me?
how you doing?
Yes, can you hear me?
I can.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, I'm doing very well. I'm here in Atlanta. I'm colorectal surgeon here, and it's just so wonderful to see everyone. I mean, I saw Morris. I saw, gosh, there's so many different people. Mira, some of my other classmates, and it just is a testament to you that it's so many people that from that era that I remember, meaning that era was very much affected in a positive way by you. So thank you for all you've done, and I just wanted to be here in your presence for one more time.
You're very kind, Tim. I'm glad you're doing well.
Thank you.
Dr. Nakayama, thank you so much for your forbearance. I know you didn't expect to be glommed with all of this, but we really appreciate you joining us tonight.
No, it's an honor. I think that's quite a testament to Tom and his work with Emory and cause of resident education. That we've always had a great admiration for Tom and what he's done. And our relationship with Emory, I think there was a golden age of Georgia surgery. We joke around about it, but when I was at Mercer, we always looked up to Emory, and we always treasured our relationships with Emory and Tom and Bill and John and everybody. And so it's a great relationship, and I'm honored to be part of the celebration. Can people hear me? I hope.
Thank you, Don.
Okay, good.
Sure. Hear you well.
All right, good. So this is your website. This is the Tom Dodson Surgical History Society, and in the background you can see that it's Eakins great masterpiece, Agnew Clinic, and we're going to talk about that at our for this talk, Antisepsis and Women in Surgery, Transitions, and Eakins Clinic Masterpieces. These are objectives, how Eakins' masterpieces, the Gross Clinic and the Agnew Clinic, documented two important transitions in surgery, that of antisepsis and asepsis, and women in surgery. And also an interesting thing is how two surgeons, Samuel Gross and D. Hayes Agnew, came to be the subjects of one of America's greatest artists of the 19th century. There's nothing to disclose. This is the room in the Philadelphia Museum of Art, and some of you may have been there, but really it's a wonderful space. It's about the same size as a half court of basketball, and you've got the paintings facing each other. They're huge. They're immense. They're about the same size as a basketball standard, right? The Gross Clinic is 10 feet tall and measures about 8 feet wide. The Agnew Clinic that you see on the right has the same dimensions, but it's 10 feet wide and 8 feet tall. And the subdued lighting in the space just emphasizes Eakins' masterful use of illumination. And if you're a surgeon, you get this sense that this is hallowed ground, right? It's someplace that every surgeon should visit at least once in his or her career. The Gross Clinic is pictured on the left. And it is very much a scene from the time in which it was painted. surgery was done by natural light. It came from an oculus from above. And as a result, the painting itself looks like it's almost subterranean. There's an air that that might be even diabolical. You've got the men with various instruments holding around what looks like some flesh. You're really not sure what it is, but it certainly is red and does bleed. And if you're a surgeon, even if you're a surgeon, you're impressed at how red the blood is. Off to the left and to the side is a figure that is variously called the mother of in the painting, and she holds her entire body and her hands especially in a attitude that can only be described as horror. The Agnew Clinic, on the other hand, is brightly illuminated because electric lights have been used in the operating room, and just emphasizes the whiteness of the drapes and the whiteness of the surgeon's gowns. In contrast to the Gross Clinic, you can see the individual faces in the gallery above, and in contrast to the Gross Clinic, where you have a woman who hides her face in terror. The woman that is dominating in the Agnew Clinic is the only other figure that you see face on. You can recognize all of her features. And as a matter of fact, she's really the compositional counterpoint to Hayes Agnew himself. And so you get the sense that a great change has taken place. It's the iconography is really unmistakable. The Gross Clinic, the blood, not only is it red, but the pigment itself stands above the level of the canvas. And so it really does look like clotted blood. The operation itself, it takes some time, as a matter of fact, to recognize that what they're operating on is a human thigh, and it takes some time to really know that. And if you're a lay viewer, you really don't understand what exactly the operation is going on. After the furor that surrounded the Gross Clinic, Agnew insisted that his hands and most of the blood be wiped clean, and so it looks like he's wearing gloves, but he is not. He's barehanded. But there's enough blood on his gown and splattered on his midriff that it's most assuredly verifies that an operation is taking place. In contrast to the Gross Clinic, where you can barely tell that they're operating on a human thigh, the body that we see in the Agnew Clinic is it's definitely identifiable as human, and the operation itself is hidden, but the body part that we see is most assuredly normal. Again, the iconography that we see, though, is the past and the future of surgery, and that's displayed wonderfully in having the two paintings juxtaposed to each other. And as Gert Brieger, the historian of medicine and surgery, said, we are now iconographically in the age of Lister. But in fact, the two paintings themselves really bracketed only a short span of time in the multi-decade transformation of surgery. It all started in the 1840s with Crawford Long, discovery of ether anesthesia, and its demonstration by William Morton in 1846. It continued with the identification of microbes by Louis Pasteur, and the application of microbes and antisepsis to Joseph Lister. An attempt to rid surgery of microbes really came to pass with Robert Koch in 1878, and all the changes that came with asepsis, and that really transformed surgery. So the two events depicted by the Gross Clinic in 1875 and the Agnew Clinic in 1889 really doesn't span all that much of what was a multi-decade transformation in surgery. At the time, surgery was beset by hospital gangrene and hospitalism, waves of invasive wound infections. James Simpson, who was a professor of midwifery and obstetrics in Edinburgh, gave the name hospitalism and hospital gangrene. He documented mortality of amputations that was as high as 55 to 65%. And most memorably, he said that the man laid on an operating table in one of our surgical hospitals is exposed to more chances of death than the English soldier on the field of Waterloo. Antisepsis was the creature of, or a product of Joseph Lister, who was professor of surgery at the University of Glasgow. When he first got there, he had a wound infection rate that was the highest in the hospital. His upper extremity infection rate was anywhere from 50 to 60%, and that just wouldn't do. He was in his 30s and was just named professor of surgery there, and so he looked for some ways of controlling sepsis. He knew that Louis Pasteur had discovered that microorganisms fermented beer and soured wine, and Pasteur himself hypothesized that germs cause disease. Richard Anderson was Joseph Lister's colleague. Anderson was a professor of chemistry, and he was using carbolic acid to deodorize sewage in Carlisle. And he suggested that it might be useful in ridding the smells in the hospital. But it was Lister who made the connection that microbes cause hospital gangrene, and the smells in the sewage in Carlisle and the smells in the hospital had something to do with the microbes. So he hypothesized that if you use carbolic acid over wounds, then that might control hospital gangrene. He tried it in open lower extremity fractures between 1865 and 1867. The carbolic acid that he had was much too potent. We use it today, it's called phenol, and you know how caustic that is. And so he had to dilute it either in water, and he came to mix it in olive oil in a 1:20 dilution. He put in the dressings, and over 11 patients, he only had 2 deaths and a mortality rate of 18%, which he took to be a significant improvement over a condition that had a 50% or greater mortality. He took to various concoctions and various ways of putting it on dressings, and finally he took to spraying over the fields during surgery, and the atomizer that he used to spray a mist of carbolic acid over the field that came to symbolize antisepsis. An entire system that he used of dressings and carbolic acid sprays was called Listerism. In America, they tried it out soon after it was published in the Lancet in 1867. The American surgeons had just come through the Civil War, and they're anxious to find some way of controlling wound gangrene. John Collins Warren Jr., who was the grandson of Warren Sr., who was the surgeon who did the first operation under the ether dome. John Collins Warren Jr. started to use it at MGH, but he faced enormous skepticism. They got great resistance from the surgical establishment. People in Europe and in England started to question whether or not it had any effect at all. Some people were getting better results from not using carbolic acid. People in America just didn't think wound gangrene was that much of a problem. They thought that American hospitals were somehow cleaner than the ones in London and in Glasgow and in Edinburgh. And a lot of people just didn't believe it. And so he got pushback from his chief, Henry Bigelow, who said either the carbolic acid dressings would be gone or Warren would be gone. The problem, though, was one of concept, right? The Lister hypothesized, like Pasteur, that organisms came from the air, and the organisms caused wound infection just as they spoiled wine and milk. Robert Koch, and he turned out to be right, said that the problem with organisms and wound infections were that they were inoculated. And so he studied wound infections using the same techniques as he used in his studies of anthrax, cholera, and tuberculosis. In other words, he cultured organisms from infected wounds, inoculated naive animals, and he caused what looked like the same infections with the same organisms. And thus he satisfied his own postulates and demonstrated exactly how wound infections occurred. He really developed the concept of translational medicine, where basic science informed clinical practice. So with organisms being cultured from hands by Kummel in 1886, Furbinger developed systematic hand washing techniques to decrease the rate of colonization of organisms on surgeons' hands. They found that organisms were on surgical instruments, so Koch and Tavel devised methods of sterilization, first using pressurized steam, then pressurized dry heat. Michelitz developed an indicator strip that indicated when sterilization procedures had been adequate. So whereas the atomizer symbolized listerism, the autoclave became the emblem of the new aseptic surgery. And this is a painting by Franz Garbina of von Bergmann doing an operation. And you see very prominently that the autoclave is in the right lower quadrant of the painting, and this is the modern surgery, right? It's interest that this painting is now lost. It got lost during the Second World War. One thing that Eakins did catch, though, was a change in surgical dress. In 1875, with the Gross Clinic up in the upper left-hand corner, you see that the surgeons have the black frock coats on. And in 1889, now they're wearing gowns. And that's the one thing that they did capture, because gowns were introduced in 1883 by Neuber, where he started to use caps and gowns in surgery. But the innovations that were not captured by Eakins was the use of rubber gloves by Halsted in 1890 and masks in 1897. This is a photo of Micklitz in the operating room in 1899, and you can see that they're all masked up. Not everyone, because you see two attendants toward the right who are not, and you see that that most of the operating team, however, are all in gowns, caps, and masks. So if Eakins painted his painting after all these innovations, in other words, after aseptic technique had been fully implemented, then we would have had a far different painting. And I think artistically, we're glad that he didn't capture it. Let's say something about the surgeons. Samuel Gross was a leading figure in American medicine. He was one of the few Americans with an international reputation at the time. He was in Pennsylvania Dutch upbringing. He grew up in Easton, Pennsylvania, in the far eastern part of the state. His school was a log cabin. His text was a Bible. He decided to go into medicine, and so he tried to train in the traditional manner of being apprenticed. He tried apprenticing himself to two practitioners, and he was dissatisfied both times. So he decided to enroll in the Jefferson Medical College when it opened up in 1826. He was in their first class. He quickly established his reputation. He published, he translated texts on anatomy and obstetrics, typhus and surgery from the original German and French. He was fluent in both. He was like many other surgeons, like all surgeons really, are fascinated by anatomy, but he had a different twist. He was devoted to pathological anatomy. He had a fascination about disease processes, and so his textbook, Elements of Pathological Anatomy, quickly sold out. He established his international reputation, and he was famous, right? He was America's foremost scientist in the world. He had the reputation of being an expert surgeon, so his System of Surgery, the basic textbook of surgery, went into 7 editions. And quickly, he was the most famous surgeon in the United States. In 1861, his manual of military surgery was used by both sides of the war. He had a reputation such that he could have his pick of any of the professorships anywhere in the United States. He chose to be professor at Louisville when he was in his mid-30s, and Jefferson when he was in his early 50s. And he was world famous. That's all there is to it. His clinical reputation rested on conservative surgery, was known as conservative surgery. From his studies on pathological anatomy, he knew that osteomyelitis, if the patient didn't succumb to the acute infection, that the infection would quickly burn out, leaving a dead piece of bone. If you took that bone out, then the rest of the bone would regenerate, and often you'd have a functional limb at the end of all that. Excuse me. He figured out that if you excise the sequestra, he figured out that when to do that, when was the most optimal time to do it, some weeks and months into the hospitalization, that you would have the best chance of regrowth of functional bone. And so you can avoid an amputation such as this calling card demonstrates. It was a radical approach. It spared thousands of limbs, and it was a true innovation. And it was an operation that's depicted in the Gross Clinic. Now, his legacy is such that pathological anatomy was supplanted by microscopic pathology in 1850 by Virchow, and conservative surgery, of course, was made obsolete by antibiotics. But his lasting contribution was the American Surgical Association, which he founded and served as its inaugural president in 1880. It continues to be the leading organization devoted to surgical science and the leading forum for surgical advances. Daniel Hayes Agnew was 13 years Gross's junior. He was professor at Penn across town. He was a successful teacher of anatomy in Philadelphia. He had students from both Penn and Jeff, and students from both schools claimed to be trained by him. He had his own textbook of surgery that went into two editions, and he was a leading figure in American surgery at the time of the assassination of President James Garfield in 1881. Garfield is shown here. He was standing unguarded, right? This is before the Secret Service at the train station in Washington, D.C., when he was shot by Charles Guiteau, which you see with the hat off. He was being restrained by some passersby, I guess. But that's Garfield after having been shot. This is the course of the bullet. It cracked through his 11th rib, went through his intervertebral disc, and lodged behind his pancreas. He almost died, right, of shock. And he had, from the descriptions, he had tachycardia, he was diaphoretic, and looked like he was going to succumb. When he survived, though, then they sent for Agnew. Agnew was brought in by train to consult. They made the 120-mile train ride from Haverford down to Washington, D.C. in just 2 hours, which was then a record. And like his surgeons before him, Agnew used his finger to probe where the bullet went, and thereby continued to seed the track with probably with bacteria, and they couldn't get the shards of cloth from his jacket out, and so that contributed to his death. Garfield's status, he survived, and so there's tremendous national interest with daily updates to the popular press. It was the first days of the telegraph, and so people knew instantaneously what was going on because he was president, and because of the great fascination of yet another assassination, the previous one being of Lincoln just 20 years before. There was tremendous interest. Agnew was constantly hounded by the press. They'd camp out on his stoop of his house, of his office in Philadelphia, and he tried to answer every question as honestly as he could. This is before the age of no comment and public relations, and so Agnew was just devastated by the experience. Garfield slowly dwindled over 80 days, and he died of sepsis. Ted Pappas down in Duke thinks that from the autopsy, he thinks that Garfield actually died of acalculous cholecystitis. There's conjecture that he may have survived had his injuries not been contaminated. There's enough controversy about his treatment with various experts thinking that Garfield's surgeons were doing the wrong thing, that at the time of his trial, Charles Guiteau, Garfield's assassin, said, "Yes, I shot the president, but his physicians killed him." So after Garfield's death, Agnew was shaken by the ordeal. He tried to maintain his dignity. He was greatly respected by his colleagues and by his residents and students. He was held in great affection. His nickname was Dear Old Man, a nickname that was made more meaningful by the person who gave it to him, that is Samuel W. Gross, which was the son of Samuel D. Gross. And when he retired in 1889, he was invited to speak at the Penn graduation. And in his honor, the Penn graduating class renamed the day Agnew Day. Something of the artist. Eakins is widely regarded as the greatest American painter in the 19th century. If you think of all the great artists in that century. It's a high honor, but I think most people would agree. He came from wealth. He never had to depend on painting for a living. He was free to choose his topics, and so they're varied, and they were intense. When he decided to paint rowers, he painted hundreds of paintings of rowers. Musicians, the same thing. When he went out west, he painted cowboys and ranch scenes, and finally, toward the end of his career, he painted prominent Philadelphians. So the question is, why surgeons for two of his most famous paintings? Part of it was his education. He came from Central High School, which is unique it was a unique high school that was taught by the city's professionals, Philadelphia's professionals, including surgeons who taught anatomy. And so he was fascinated by surgeons, fascinated by anatomy, and he actually enrolled in Jefferson Medical College, but his father knew something of the boy, and he encouraged art instead, and he trained in art at the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts and in Paris. In truth, he was more at home with anatomists and surgeons than in the art community. When he returned from Paris, he worked as a prosector under W.W. Keene, who had succeeded Gross as professor of surgery at Jefferson. He was fascinated by human anatomy and movement. This is his study of a male nude jumping to the right, and that he did with Edward Muybridge when Muybridge was at the University of Pennsylvania. So getting back to his early career, when he got back to the United States after training in Paris, plans were announced for a World's Fair in Philadelphia to celebrate the centennial of the U.S. and to announce to the world that America was ready to take its place as one of the peer nations of the world. As part of the celebration was a call for works for a juried exhibit of American art to be held in Memorial Hall, a hall that is still standing in Memorial Park in Philadelphia. Most artists would plan to just send works that they had already done, but not Eakins. Eakins decided to paint an original work that appropriately celebrated American achievement. And what better subject than Gross, who was one of the most prominent surgeons and one of the most prominent Americans of science in the world. He was enthusiastic because not only was it appropriate for the occasion and the celebration, but for Eakins, there was a chance to display his artistic command that he learned in Paris and mastered in the United States. And it is also a declaration of his place in the world as a peer. This is a sketch that he drew in preparation for the Gross Clinic, and you can see it has all the compositional elements of the final painting. And he was very optimistic. It's very far better than anything I have ever done, he said. And this is the final painting. I've heard it said that it's the finest portrait in American art. I've heard it said that it's the finest 19th century painting. I've heard it said that it's the most famous American piece of work of art. You know, you get arguments for and against it, but I think there's no doubt that it'd be on a very, very, very short list of famous American paintings. It was rejected. The selection committee rejected the work. It was simply too shocking for the public. It's like today's slasher movie. It'd be like having a slasher movie at the movies in the park, right? Gross finally interceded. They hung the painting up. They displayed it in a mock-up of a military ward far, far away from the Memorial Hall where all the rest of the art was being displayed. And Eakins was crushed. This is a typical response for the reception of the Gross Clinic at the time. It is a picture that even strong men find it difficult to look at long if they can look at it at all. As for people with nerves and stomachs, the scene is so real that they might as well go to a dissecting room and have done at it. After the World's Fair, the painting was returned to Jefferson, who paid Eakins $200 for it, which is $4,400 today. It was variously in a hallway, and there's only so many places you can hang a 10-foot tall work of art. It was in a hallway. It was in the staircase. Finally, it was displayed in the Student Union, where most of the time it was behind a floor-to-ceiling wrought iron cage, gate. But everything has its price. It was finally sold to Crystal Bridges Museum of Art that was being organized by Alice Walton, the Walmart heiress in northwestern Arkansas, and she bought it for $68 million. It was just too much for Philadelphia's most famous painting by its most famous artist to have it wind up in northwestern Arkansas. So Walton agreed to give up her bid if the Philadelphians could buy it for the same price. And it was retained by a Philadelphia consortium. It was led by the Philadelphia Museum of Art and the Pennsylvania Academy of Art, and they finally raised the money and they saved it. Eakins, after the Gross Clinic debacle, taught at the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts and was eventually its director. In typical fashion, he insisted that the students study anatomy and paint from life. When he stripped the loincloth of a male model, that was just too much for the Philadelphians. He was fired in 1886 and he was humiliated. He became a pariah in the Philadelphia art community, and he exiled himself, deeply depressed, to the Badlands in South Dakota, where he retired to paint ranch scenes and cowboys. He returned to Philadelphia around 1888 and began to paint portraits of famous Philadelphians, like the one you see here of Jacob DaCosta. It was probably a portrait like this that the Penn graduating class of 1889 had in mind when they raised $750, about $20,000 today, for a portrait of Agnew. Eakins accepted the commission on the condition that he painted to the same scale as the Gross Clinic for the same fee. And so he had an opportunity to paint a companion piece to the great Gross Clinic that he had painted 14 years before. This is Agnew operating in 1886, some 3 years before the execution of the Agnew Clinic painting. And you can see that he's wearing black. You see that they're all men in the pit and in the galleries. There are no women there. Eakins, for his composition, decided to flip the pit, and so the opening is to the right. And in the meantime, from 1886 to 1889, you see that Agnew is now wearing a gown, and you see a figure off to the right of a woman in attendance. It was so large that he painted it on the floor. As a matter of fact, he was found asleep at the foot of the painting at one point. He only had 3 months to paint it, and the composition includes the portraits of the 20-some donors that were there. So he had to do all that work in a very limited amount of time in order to get it ready for graduation. He worked day and night for the final 96 hours. He was once found asleep at the floor at the foot of the canvas. And this is the final painting. You know, the reason why it's such a great painting is that every one of the faces is visible, and they're all pointed like compasses to the artistic center, focus of the painting, that is the woman's chest. And just in terms of just the action and the attitudes of all the people in the gallery, just really makes this a masterpiece of composition. Eakins himself is off to the right. That actually was painted by his wife. So remember that 1889, the commencement was called Agnew Day. Agnew gave the guests a talk, the featured talk. He spoke on tracheotomy. The painting was unveiled to a deafening clapping of hands. It was very well received. And also asked to give some remarks was William Osler. Osler was leaving Penn for Johns Hopkins and was asked to give some remarks at the ceremony as well. And his remarks were later reprinted as Equanimitas, which was reprinted to the present day, really, but really was a well-known piece that was emphasized professionalism in medicine. So there's no doubt that the 1889 commencement was the greatest commencement ever. The reaction to the Agnew Clinic is probably what you would think: mere excuses for the depiction of horrors of the dissecting table, most reprehensible. And again, Eakins' pride was wounded. They call me a butcher, and all I was trying to do was to picture the soul of a great surgeon. The painting itself was hung in Alumni Hall in at Penn. It was at the top of a double stairwell. Both stairwells, the sets of stairs would go off to the side, and the painting hung high above them, so you really couldn't see it at eye level. You had to stand below it and off to the side, or across a great expanse of space off the great atrium and see it across from that vantage point. There was actual fire that was in the building. The heat from the fire made the lacquer on the painting opaque. And with conservation efforts by the Philadelphia Museum of Art, it was restored. And Penn figured out that they couldn't really take care of the painting. And so it's on permanent loan to the Philadelphia Museum of Art. And that's the reason why both these paintings are in the same room at the same time. And that's how they got there. This is our timeline again. And this is our next transition, women in surgery. And one thing that the two paintings do capture is the entry of women in surgery. The organization of University of Pennsylvania School of Nursing was 1886. Its most famous alumna, Mary Clymer, was in the second class in 1887. So how did the Eakins get from here to here? Wasn't because of Agnew, because Agnew had definite ideas about the role of women in medicine. You can read that he never approved of coeducation of sexes or the medical education of women under any circumstances, believing that any possible advantages to them were far more counterbalanced by what he thought would be the inevitable loss of dignity and delicacy resulting from the association of the sexes. Assistants at surgery had to have strong stomachs and strong shoulders, right? They had to hold people down. It was a brutal craft, and you really need to have strong persons to help hold people down. That's the role of assistants at surgery back then. With anesthesia and with asepsis, though, operations could be more complicated, more delicate. The instruments were finer. They could do more. They were more fragile, and they had to be taken care of. The procedures for sterilization had to be strictly observed, and so that required, a nimble mind, nimble hands, persons who paid attention. And so that opened up a role for someone who was smart, agile, and could do the job. And so, despite his attitude toward women, Agnew certainly saw the value of a skilled nurse in the operating room. I think we all have the experience whenever we have someone with less experience who hasn't been in operating quite as much, and we know the difference that a skilled surgical nurse, a surgical technician can make. So the Agnew Clinic not only celebrates a surgeon, it also celebrates a surgical nurse. Mary Clymer is that nurse. She was in the second class in training program at the hospital of the University of Pennsylvania in 1887. She was an honored graduate. She won the Florence Nightingale Award. She was the first, if not the very first, nurse to perform specialized duties in the surgical amphitheater. That's Mary Clymer in the lower left-hand corner there. This is her former portrait of her in a nursing outfit. She was assessed from the notes that she took after surgical operations, and that was her assessment. Most excellent, it says. And we know by her own documentation that she assisted at surgery. Allowed to prepare a table for operations, saw and assisted with 2 operations, saw diseased bones, removed without much loss of blood, and prepared antiseptic dressing for the wound. In other words, the same operation as the Gross Clinic. We don't see her; she's static in the painting, obviously, but we have some idea of what she did and the effect of what she did at surgery. This is the surgical instruments that you see in the Gross Clinic. You see that they're kind of in the case. They're at odd angles. Some are open. There are some on the edges of the case of instruments themselves. And then in the Agnew Clinic, things are much cleaner. The only instruments that you see are the ones that are being held by the surgeon and by his assistant. There's a case there on the left-hand photo that presumably holds the instruments while they're being sterilized. And then at the assistant's left elbow, being held by Mary Clymer's left hand, you see the faint outline of a tray, and that's where we think, or one might surmise, the instruments themselves are being kept. So it's much more organized, much cleaner, and Mary Clymer's has it all taken care of. The role of nurses in surgery and medical history has been grossly underestimated, even ignored. Charles Rosenberg, the medical historian, said that nurses made hospital and medical practices possible, and nursing is not a separate part of a subsection of medical history, but rather one that is deeply embedded in the relationships and social order of clinical practice. In closing, there's one thing that I see that's not been mentioned in any of the books about Eakins, but I couldn't help but notice in the paintings. This is the formal photo of Mary Clymer, and you see her hat. And the cap itself in the painting is more prominent, higher on her head. And to me, that's a clear evocation of Athena's helmet. And if you think of a principle in great art and great novels, that a great artist never puts anything in the painting by accident. He or she does things deliberately. Anything that's there is an act of the art itself. So I hypothesize, or I think that this is clearly an evocation of Athena. Athena is the protectress she's the goddess of wisdom and courage. Clymer just projects calm, concentration, and competence. She is there to protect the patient from harm. She is watchful, and she is Athena in the painting. And that's the core concept of modern professionalism. And it's exactly that principle that I think is embodied in Tom Dodson. It's an honor. I hope, thank you for those of you who stayed to the end of this. I appreciate your patience and attention. Congratulations, Tom. What a fine achievement. You know, I think that all of us aspire to be recognized by the people that you train, and you have certainly achieved that. So thank you very much for all that you've done for Emory, for the future of surgery, and thank you for the kind invitation to address the Tom Dodson Society. Thank you very much.
Don, thanks so much. How wonderful. I
You're
appreciate
welcome.
you putting me as a younger person too. That's nice.
Well, you're ageless, Tom.
Thank you so much. That was really phenomenal as always. It's been quite inspirational, I think, to me to see that there are still people out there who are willing to delve into surgical history in this era and still publish and write about it. So I've really appreciated a lot of your work, Don, and really, really appreciate you joining us tonight. You were just the right person for this. I think one of Tom Dodson's legacies will be his championing, particularly of women in surgery. So I came into this program and it was already a 50% female residency. And that certainly wasn't the case, you know, when I was at Northwestern as a medical student. And so I appreciate your choice of the topic for the evening as well.
Thank you, Genevieve. Thank you very much for the invitation. Brendan, thank you for the invitation. He's the one who reached out to me originally. And it was a happy circumstance that I was able to give this at the occasion of Tom's retirement. So congratulations, everyone.
And normally we would have Brendan kick into a presentation. I think given the way that we started off this evening, though, I don't want to stretch things out too far into the night and respect everyone's time. So I think, Brendan, if I'm not incorrect, you were going to talk about the history of appendicitis, perhaps, as it related to British royalty.
That's correct. And you can look forward to it at the next meeting.
Outstanding. So since we have a little bit of extra time, I just wanted to give an opportunity for anyone who's online. Dr. Dodson, I know Pooja just scrubbed out of the operating room. Pooja Gar, now Pooja Kaitan. And I wanted to give her an opportunity to say hello to you.
Great.
Pooja, I don't know if you can unmute yourself.
I see James Mikitiko. How are you doing?
Hi, Dr. Dodson. It's great to see you.
Good to see you.
So I wrote a little message there, but thank you so much for all the great teaching, and I missed your great humor in the operating room.
You're very kind. Where are you now?
Los Angeles.
Are you really?
Yeah.
I know you were at
I changed-
Vanderbilt for a while.
Yeah, I was doing cardiac surgery, and I sort of changed paths, and I do critical care and acute care surgery.
Good. I see Michael Gelfand. I can't hear you.
I say you need a shave. It's a good thing you didn't show up in Annapolis like that.
Right.
And Dr. Dodson, Zvonimir was on the line earlier as well. I don't know if we still have him on the line, but he had typed into the chat, "Thank you, Dr. Dodson, for giving me an opportunity, guidance as a resident, and an example of a dedicated surgeon. Your mentorship meant a lot, but is often much later when you recognize the depth of its impact. Thanks for always asking about my families and reminding me to call my mother." It was an important one. And I never called my mother, by the way. She reminded me after I finished residency with frequency. And then also Joel, who I think Joel and Mary they may now be in the same room, but he wrote into the chat, "Dr. Dodson, thank you for your wisdom, charm, and guidance, and thank you for your wit. I wish I could have worked with you more, but Mary tells me great stories and Dodsonisms. I tell everyone I fancy myself a vascular surgeon, but I need a cardiopulmonary bypass machine to do the work." So
Mary and Joel, two of our best.
And Felipe, I see on the line as well. Felipe,
Hello, Dr. Dodson.
Hey, how are you, Felipe?
Good. How are you doing? It's nice to see you again.
Nice to see you. Where are you?
I'm in Tampa, Florida.
Tampa, Florida. Great.
Yes, sir. I did a vascular surgery in SIU.
Uh-huh.
And I came back to Florida. It was too cold for me up there.
Right. So are you doing okay?
I'm doing good, yeah. I started a little bit late, but I have 2 kids now, 7 and 4, and very happy here in Tampa.
Oh, you're a good surgeon, so I'm sure they're happy to have you.
Oh, thank you very much, sir, and congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Oh, no, thank you very much for all of your teaching.
Bob Nesbitt. Can you hear me?
Hey, Bob.
Unfortunately, my granddaughter's volleyball games didn't last as long as I'd hoped because they didn't do well. But delighted I got to hear Don. It was an excellent talk, Don. And it's only because Don had told me he would be speaking tonight that I was aware of this Dodson Society. So I look forward to listening in the future, maybe even taking part.
that would be fantastic. We would love that. We're always looking for folks who are ready to help host the next session. And at some point, we'll hopefully get people who can actually join us in person again, but we'll keep up these Zoom sessions in perpetuity, I think.
So Bob, how are you doing?
Doing great. Doing still clerk ship director, so keeps me off the streets and out of trouble.
That's good. Your family doing okay?
They are. We've got the fun thing is I've got a granddaughter who just graduated from Wake Forest, and she is taking the year in charge of the Wake Forest House in Venice.
Really?
And so we're going to feel obligated sometime in the near future to go visit our granddaughter in Venice.
Oh, you must do that. Hope you'll be able to get out of there when you visit. But
well, there are worse places to be stuck.
Sure. It's good to see you.
Thank you. Good to see you. Good to see everybody.
Dr. Ricketts, thank you for joining tonight. It's good to see you. I haven't seen you since we went down to Haiti together back a few years back.
Yes, I know, and that was interesting and good times.
Yes.
So Tom and I have been friends for over 30 years, probably. I hate to admit that. Tom has been a long time, and I've got some great memories working with Tom. He would come over and help us out of vascular issues that we would have on those children. and I always admired his technique and his precision in those vascular anastomoses. Some of my greatest memories, though, were when he and I, actually he, and I was just there, were running the liver transplant surgical program. I mean, we were doing the surgery. He was doing the surgery. I was helping him. And those are great times. That really taught me a lot about anatomy of the liver and all the vascular, connections, and really helped with my ability to do liver surgery on children, tumors mainly. And so that was a great time. And one thing I remember is when he let me sew the portal vein. And I kept pulling up on the suture, and he kept saying, no, 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 it's got to be loose, got to be loose. And the suture was just like flopping in the breeze. I figured, how in the world is this thing going to hold? And sure enough, when we took the clamps off, the portal vein swelled up, and all the slack in the sutures came out, and it was a perfect anastomosis. But I just couldn't believe that you could sew a big vessel like that and have such, loose sutures. And I'll never forget that. But he taught me how to get above the liver, below the liver, under the liver, and it really, really helped me be able to do hepatic surgery in the rest of my career. So Tom, thanks very much for all that. Your friendship has been great, particularly at the, in the OR and at the surgical societies, and it's just been great knowing you. And you're not gonna, I know you have a daughter, is it? A daughter up in
Daughter in DC, and 2 boys, one in New York and one in Asheville, North Carolina.
Asheville, yeah, right. I knew you had a
Right.
child in Nashville, and I keep telling you, you need to stop by. I mean, you got to go right by my house on the way up there. So I
Sure.
hope you and Dan will come see us sometime. And congratulations on a great career and on your almost retirement.
Thanks a lot. Just pick a month. We're coming.
Okay. Well, we're here. I mean, we're here.
Tell Sandy we said hello.
Thank you. I sure will. Thanks, Tom.
I want to give credit to Brendan for running this. I think particularly Dr. Dodson, the History Society wouldn't be successful without him. So, with that, I'm going to wrap up the evening.
I want to say something. It's
yeah,
Pooja.
Pooja, please go ahead.
Pooja.
How are you?
How
I'm
many
sorry,
children do you have now, Pooja?
I've got two kids.
2. Good.
Yeah, they're
Good to
4
see
and
you.
3 years old, but it is so nice to see you. And Mrs. Dodson, I don't know if you remember me, but I used to stop by the gift shop as well, and I've been to your house, and you guys have always been such a nice and pleasant host. And I wish you both the best.
I remember you very well.
So fond of his memories. You're not just a great surgeon, but you're a true good human being. No matter what hour it was just such a pleasure to even talk to you, to run a consult, to talk to you. You set the best example that we all can think of. So thank you for
Very kind,
everything.
Pooja. Hug those children for me, okay?
I will. I'll see you when I come back to Atlanta sometime.
Call me, okay?
Yes.
You're operating with your right hand or your left hand?
No, I'm sticking with my left hand, Dr. Dodson.
Good. I remember.
Yes, you do.
We talked about that.
Yeah. And if you're ever in DC, please let me know.
I will. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. I hope to see you both soon.
Joe, I'd feel remiss if I didn't see if you wanted to unmute and say anything. I know you've expressed your sentiments directly to Dr. Dodson, but we've heard from Mary and Bo and Joel, and we were all in one intern class. Is there anything you want to say?
Well, I mean, I don't think that there's anything that's been left unsaid. Everyone's sentiments have been pretty much right up my alley, but it's very personal for me. I'm actually having difficulty speaking what I want to say. But I wouldn't be here right now if it wasn't for Dr. Dodson. And in no way, I can't give enough stress to that. It's a very difficult time in my life, and to transition from as you say, Dr. Dodson, you rescued me from urology, and that you did. And I am very lucky to be where I am, and it was almost 99.9% it's you. I'll give that 1/10% to a few other friends I have around the world, but it's all you. So thank
But
you. For
Joe, you've had a great career. I knew if we hired you, if we ever needed any urology help at the same time, you'd be available. As you get older, that's important to think about that.
Thank you, sir, for reminding me of that.
You've done great, Joe. And
Marty, I wanted to, you know, I think Bo Edelman told me that you're his favorite Tar Heel, so I just wanted to give you a chance to say something if you wanted to.
Hi, Dr. Dodson.
Hey, Marty.
Great to see you last week in person.
Yeah.
I can't thank you enough for everything that you did. I mean, it's the same story that everyone else has, but I don't know that you can appreciate the impact you had on our lives and our training. And I will be forever grateful for that. So thank you for teaching me to be a better doctor, a better human. And Jan, so great to see you. Hope to see you in person one day soon.
Yes, yes. Same.
Marty, thanks so much. I remember when we were rounding and there was a little doll on the bed and I said, what is that? And you said, it's Elmo, I believe. Isn't that right? And you said, well, isn't that correct?
Something like that.
Yeah. And you said, I watched Sesame Street or something to that effect. Thanks for the kind words.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. Good night.
Good night.
Genevieve, thanks so much.
All right.
Thanks for
Wonderful
organizing.
evening.
Thank you all. Good night.
My pleasure.
Thank you,
Very
Don.
well.
Thank you.
Bob, take care. Felipe,
Bye-bye.
take care of
Thank you very
everybody.
much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.